On February 11th, 2003, the first of a quadrilogy for the .hack series was released for the PlayStation 2. This was followed by Mutation in May, Outbreak in September, and Quarantine in January of 2004. At that time, it was not uncommon for games to have multiple discs due to the limited space the single-layer DVD-5 provided. This was a common practice that was seen in the previous generation. While many games of that era are still obtainable today for a fair price, the .hack series in particular is one that swiftly became a lot more costly with each part. This is more than likely due to the limited prints with each subsequent volume, combined with an urge of collectors to own the complete set, meaning a person may have gotten the first 3 volumes for a reasonable price, but due to the rarity of the 4th, they are more than willing to pay in excess to obtain what they believe is valuable. This makes sense due to supply and demand. However, we live in a day and age where games released not even 5 years ago are being remastered. Even in regards to the PlayStation 2 era, .hack GU in particular is available now on almost every platform, yet the original quadrilogy remains bound to the 6th generation with no signs of ever being accessible to the masses without emulation or a fair amount of money. So, why is that? On a surface level, it appears to be a no-brainer that these games should be remastered at the very least, but Bandai Namco, outside of .hack GU, has not attempted to bring the original 4 games to modern platforms. While I could sit here and speculate why they have chosen not to do this, i.e. time investment versus profit, loss of source code, lack of interest, I wanted to make a different approach to that question and instead focus on why this series deserved a remake and not simply a remaster. It is important to realize that nostalgia can be deceiving. Before we beat down Bandai Namco's doors praying for a remaster, I instead wanted to revisit all 4 volumes in their entirety to explain why a remaster alone would not be justice to this series. So buckle up and join me on my adventure through all 4 games to prove why we should want a remake and not just a remaster. Now, to properly address this statement, I will be focusing on 1 volume per video to give as much detail as I can on it. These details will focus on the gameplay, the story, the voice acting, and its replayability. So, let us begin. .hack Infection begins with a quick flash of a screen showing the Ultimate operating systems, which is then followed by the option to name the main character. We are then brought to the main user interface of the game, which resembles an operating system but in a list format. From top to bottom, we can see different applications that start with the world, mailer, news, accessories, audio, and data. The latter 3 options are just for customization, while the top 3 options help with world building and progression in the game. Just in case you aren't familiar with the .hack series or need a reminder, the world is an MMORPG and our interactions revolve around it. Keep in mind at this time in the early 2000s, there were only a handful of MMOs around and World of Warcraft was not one of them. For now, let's log into the world. This brings us to another screen with 3 options, and the middle one, which is the board, serves as a forum hub for the world. This is where we get fed interesting tidbits for story progression and optional content, but more on that later. After entering the world, we meet up with our good old pal Orca and he gives a breakdown of the basics, such as inviting party members and choosing an area to enter. To enter an area in the world, it is done via Chaos Gate, where the player can dictate different settings and difficulty for the environment based on keywords. With that being said, we follow Orca's guidance, as not only is this a tutorial for Kite in the world, but it's also a tutorial for the player who is playing the game within a game. Anyway, after some more data dumping, we finally get a taste of the combat. Everything happens in real time, and as Kite we can attack enemies with the press of the X button or cast skills based on what weapon and gear we have equipped at the time. Kite is also capable of directing party members to heal the squad, buff the squad, or go all out. So now is a good time to explain the basic loop of the game. Every area contains a dungeon which has treasure at the bottom floor. Said treasure can be used to power up your current party members or be traded with other NPCs in town. So the higher the level, the better the gear. Outside of these dungeons, there is not much else besides the main hubs and what we have already seen on Kite's desktop. But let's continue with the story for now. After making it to the bottom floor of this dungeon, we get some new blades and a cutscene that sets this whole game into motion. The background suddenly changes from the dungeon and a ghostly girl appears before Kite and Orca. She ends up handing Orca a book and warning him of its power right before a monster appears out of nowhere. Immediately this monster attacks Orca with a move called Data Drain and it forces him to be logged out of the game. Kite is then attacked by the same monster, but due to a system error and anime, he gets transported to another area and the book that Orca was given is embedded into his character. We also find out at this point our dear friend Orca wasn't just logged out of the game, but that data drain went ahead and logged him out of life. It is stated he was hospitalized after the attack. This prompts Kite to post on the board of the world to see if other players have experienced a similar issue, as data on a screen should not affect a player physically, well, unless you play gacha games. There are also a lot of other posts on the board covering various topics. This is a great spot to pick up more keywords as well to make leveling easier. At this point, due to server maintenance, we are unable to re-enter the world, so it's time to check those emails. And right at the top of our inbox comes an eerie message from the ghostly looking girl, but come on, she's just roleplaying, right? Let's get back into the game. Upon arrival, we end up meeting another main character of the series, Black Rose. Do not let her cocky takes fool you. She is sensitive under the surface.
What? What is it? You got something to say?
No.
Oh, I get it now. You are a newbie, aren't you? I might have guessed. Well, are you or not? Come on now, don't be shy. You can tell me.
Following some exploration around Makanu, it's time to set off towards the next destination, which was provided by Black Rose. A place called Delta Hidden Forbidden Holy Ground is a .hack series' favorite spot for important events. A cutscene ensues where Kite reads some names that are meaningless for now, and then suddenly another player by the name of Balmonk makes an appearance. He warns them that this area is dangerous, and after some visual glitches, a monster somehow spawns in this non-combat zone. This gives Kite PTSD as he remembers what happened with him and Orca, but a voice reminds him that he has the Book of Twilight. So I'll let the game take over from here.
The book. Open the book. The book? The power it holds can bring forth either salvation or destruction at the whim of the user.
Kite's character data got overwritten once he used the Book of Twilight and turned his traditional green suit into a red one. Besides his new look, he also received a new power called Data Drain, which is what the monster at the very beginning of the game used on Orca. This ability allows him to render once invincible monsters back into a killable state. Balmonk does not like what he just saw, however, and decides to head out. Here we are also treated to a scene between him and Helba, the lady who was also present when Kite received the Book of Twilight. Meanwhile, Kite realizes that the voice came from the ghostly girl he saw previously with Orca and questions what is he supposed to do with this newfound power. But for now, the smartest thing to do is log out. Checking the board for the world reveals that Kite's post on Orca being comatose has gotten erased. In his inbox sits a message from Black Rose and most importantly Helba, who then explains his newly acquired ability of Data Drain. What it boils down to is when a monster is weak enough, their data can be rewritten to obtain virus cores or items. Additionally, if a player continues to spam Data Drain without normally killing monsters, then they can get a game over due to the corruption of Kite's character data. Once back in the world, we overhear some other players talking about another player who looks like a cat, which is weird as no other character looks that way. We end up encountering this cat woman by the name of Mia and her friend Elk. Oddly enough, Mia comes running to Kite as she can somehow see the bracelet on his arm, which gives him the ability to data drain. After doing a bit of leveling here, the next task is to explore an area that was posted on the board in Delta Expansive Haunted Sea of Sand, where players aren't able to access the dungeon below. Once reaching the first floor of this dungeon, we encounter an administrator who goes on to explain the situation.
Please return to the field immediately and gate out to the town.
Cool story, bro. We're going in anyways. It is here where a common theme for the rest of this game is established. Anything involving the story in any impactful way is always done at the end of a dungeon, almost every single time. So we kill some monsters, grab some loot, and end up on B3 of the dungeon, where we then encounter a data bug. We also happen to have a witness by the name of Mistral, who goes on to befriend our boy Kite and inspect Makanu. Here we encounter another interesting player by the name of Pyros, and all I can say at this point is Pyros is a man. So we buckle up and head to Delta Indiscreet Gluttonous Pilgrimage just like he wanted. On floor B3 once again we encountered Pyros going toe to toe with another data bug, so it's time to fight once again. For our troubles, we receive another virus core and Pyrrhos' member address. This is starting to get repetitive already, isn't it? Well, what is happening at this point is the introduction of other players masked behind the need to obtain some very specific virus cores. Why do we need those? Well, I'm glad you asked. Returning to Makanu prompts us with an email notification, so it is time to log back out and check it. Somehow Kite has won the first anniversary power-up campaign, so back into the game we go. After talking to the NPC, we receive the Book of Law, but weirdly enough, it cannot be used. Oh well. Back to the inbox once again due to another email, but this time it's from Mia, who knows more about Kite's bracelet than he does. So it's off to Delta Boundless Corrupted Fort Walls. As we travel through the floors of this dungeon alone, Mia sprinkles in questions and statements to help lead us along to the very bottom of this dungeon, which stops at floor B5. It is also in this dungeon where we obtain Ryu Book 1 via data drain spamming. The Ryu books, which consist of 8 total, rewards the player with extra goodies such as wallpapers, movies, and background music, which can be played on the desktop, so they bear no importance story-wise. But at the end of this floor, we encounter yet another data bug. Mia appears afterward and tells Kite he can also hack gates, but wants to test his ability beforehand.
What? What do you mean by that?
Are you angry? I just wanted to know the extent of your power. If you were too weak, there would be no point in teaching you how to hack the gates.
She then provides us with another area to go to, but this time it is protected. This is where those virus cores we have been obtaining via data draining come into play. Each monster on every server is categorized into one of 3 types, and will provide a virus core based on that type. The type is their size. Luckily, the game at this point is fairly kind with it, so not only have we learned how to data drain, but also hacked into protected areas those pesky developers don't want us in. Fast forward to floor B3, and another data bug bites the dust. Our reward is while Mia saying this.
I don't care what happened to you in the past, but I am interested in what you are going to do with the bracelet in the future. Well, that's about it. If there's anything I can do to help you, I'll try my best.
With some more emails in the inbox, we can take a gander at the current news situation, which does help with immersion and most importantly, learn more about these virus cores from Helba. Logging back into the game once more, we encountered Balmonk, who apologizes for his previous behavior, which is then followed by a visit from Helba, who warns us about Leos. She also states that due to Kite's bracelet, the system may see him as a virus now and not a normal player. Back to the OS again for more emails, which consist of one from Black Rose and the other from the Ghostly Girl. This gives us access to the data server now, so it's goodbye Makanu and hello Dunloriag. We will throw Mistral on the squad too, as Wave Masters are always useful, and it's off to Theta Quiet Eternal White Devil, an area Black Rose wanted us to visit. Fun fact, it was at this point in the game that I realized the importance of the speed charm in particular. These dungeons are massive with a lot of rooms, and Kite is a slow runner. To make things move faster than a snail's pace, I lived and died by the speed charms from this point forward. We end up making it to the end of this dungeon, and this time it turns out we have been had. It was a waste of time. Returning to Makanu gives us a spicy drama scene between Mia and Elk. Elk then appears by the Chaos Gate here and wants Kite to come along to an area to talk. We all know what this is about. Elk thinks he has an online girlfriend in an era before Minecraft was even a thought. So we end up going to the area Elk wants, and he asks if he can have the bracelet to impress Mia. We know the obvious answer, but this area begins to glitch out, which means it's time to head to the bottom floor. Mia was down here, and it's time to fight another data bug. Back to town, back to the inbox, you know how this game operates by now. We end up seeing a scene between Mia and Pyrrhos where Pyrrhos gets tricked by her, and as a result, the potion he takes turns him a funny color. Honestly, I'm going to skip past this part as it's just filler. After restoring Pyrrhos' glory, we get another email from Black Rose, but we are unable to access the area for now. So we end up encountering Mistral by the Chaos Gate and Dunloriag, and after hearing how she almost got scammed, she spills the tea on a dangerous area she heard from the weapon shop called Data Collapse Momentary Spiral. We fight another data bug, and once back in town, Black Rose is there to finally deliver the next lead to hopefully find that mysterious girl from before. We make our way down to floor B3 of Theta Cursed Despaired Paradise, and then are treated to an interesting scene, to say the least. We learn of something called the Wave, and now have a name to attach to the ghostly girl, Aura. Logging out and checking the board then leads to a peculiar post that calls out Orca. It sounds like another player knows him and wants to meet him for something, so it's then off to Delta bursting past over Aquafield. What a mouthful. This is where we meet Bob and get another area to visit right after. Now it's off to buried pagan fiery sands. It's the same deal here. Make it to the bottom floor of the dungeon for a cutscene. This one is short and shows a chair in a room with weird gouges in the floor, and we receive the epitaph key item. We then log out, log in, and Black Rose tells us she's going to visit Theta Great Distant Fertile Land, so that means we must come along. This is a great segue, by the way, to mention how copy and paste .hack infection is with all aspects of the game. I understand this game came out for North America back in 2003, but the basic loop of this game, even in this first installment, is painfully dull. You tend to obtain a new keyword or area through your party members, email, or the board, and that is it. It is all the same thing, just in a slightly different format. The cutscenes too tend to either happen in town, in a non-combat zone, or on the last floor of a dungeon. This makes a lot of the game predictable from the very beginning, as all surprises are held back by a boss. Moving on though, we head to the deepest floor of this area, and after obtaining the treasure, we get a brief scene. Turns out we came here for yet another string of keywords that Meg here had posted on the board. So back to the board, and then we find out her particular post got deleted. Also in the news tab, we learn about more students being comatose for unknown reasons. Seems like things are starting to pick up here, right? Well, yes, actually. After logging back into the game, some more emos come through. One is from Aura, who talks as though she is cussing, and the next is from Helba, who provides us with the keywords that were deleted from Meg's post on the board. This also prompts a scene where Black Rose is like, "Kite, we are in this together, bro." Shout out to you, Black Rose, out here keeping your online homies safe. Sprinkle in a little bit of gate hacking, and bam, we are now in Theta Chosen Hopeless Nothingness. You know the drill. Head to the bottom of the dungeon and collect items, gear, some levels, and most importantly some virus cores via data drain. It is here where the old rusted gears finally start to turn. We finally track down Aura once again, however, the monster known as Skeeth, the Terror of Death, is here too. He proceeds to do what he does best and data drain Aura right before our very eyes. At this point, everyone is tired of him data draining every damn thing he sees, so it's finally time to whoop his ass. Not much is known about him at this point, but these particular battles, with some fantastic music, will become a reoccurring thing. But to keep things simple here, Skeeth is capable of data draining any party member whenever he feels like it, and he also has an arsenal of his own moves. Luckily, this data drain does not result in a coma or a decrease in your character's level. Eventually, with enough damage sustained, we then get to data drain him and finally take him out once and for all. But with the death of Skeeth comes something much more sinister. Cubia. And that, folks, is the end of .hack infection, story-wise. We are free to keep playing at this point and also obtain the data flag for this game, allowing us to transfer our exact data over to mutation. Also, since the game has been cleared, we can tackle an optional boss located at, you guessed it, the bottom of an optional dungeon. Other than that, we can also hoard some rare items, fight some golden goblins, and max out the Ryu books, among other things. But with that out of the way, let's talk about the overall story at this point and its execution. Kite was introduced to the world by his good friend Orca. However, due to some poor luck, Orca ends up comatose due to a bug in the program. Along the way, he meets some other players like Black Rose and Mistral who are supportive of his cause. Eventually, we find out who Aura is and then face off against Skeeth, the monster responsible for Orca's current condition. But with the fall of Skeeth, the true enemy appeared before us, named Cubia. Some aspects of this story are interesting, such as a video game affecting someone in real life and the entire game being an MMORPG, yet for the middle portion of Infection, it boiled down to chasing dead ends. I can admit that so far I'm not a fan of how this story is being done, but it is important to realize that this is the first of a 4-part series, so for now I can let things slide as the flame is just starting to burn. Luckily for us, most of the voice acting in this game is sufficient, which is a nice touch considering the people we interact with are supposed to be actual players.
I see. How much of that is true, I do not know. But do not dare to forget, that bracelet's power is the same as the one that placed Orca into a coma.
Yeah, I know. I don't have to be reminded of it.
Shifting over to the gameplay, there is much left to be desired. As a player, we are bound to kite and kite only. While different gear brings different spells and skills, the underlying issue is the menuing involved to use anything besides his basic attack. This game suffers from an excessive reliance on using a menu within another menu to do anything. If you want to cast a spell, you must open your menu, shuffle on over to your attack or defense spell, select it, and then the applicable monster or friend. Rinse and repeat for items, buffs, and even data draining. Oh, and do not forget about switching up your equipment. At this point, multiple elements are not needed, but once you come across monsters who are immune to physical or magic damage, it is not uncommon to switch your gear to take them out. So I often ended up just spamming my basic attack until the fight was over, unless I had a spell that said the enemy was weak to already equipped. Oddly enough, the gear system in this game is not as one would think either. For example, a level 97 piece of gear would appear to be accessible to a character that is level 97 or above, right? Wrong. You could be level 1 in this game and equip that level 97 piece of gear, no problem, as long as it was in your possession. This made things weird as a lot of weapons would be half of your character's level the entire playthrough. If that was not enough, the worst part about Infection combat-wise is the AI of your party members. I'm not sure if it was just me, but they felt sluggish in their actions after I would shout out a command to them. Also regarding levels in this game, the soft cap is right around level 35, but you can grind it out to level 99 if you desire to do so, which I don't recommend. Regarding the replayability of Infection, it is important to realize its weight in the grand scheme of the plot. It is the beginning, so many events that will take place will naturally lead back to this time as conflicts come to a resolution. While both the gameplay and story are not great, Infection does have some charm to it. The game always feels like it's on the cusp of something great, something mysterious, something unique. Even though it is in an MMORPG that is meant to be played as a single player experience, I felt like the atmosphere of this game helped to make it feel authentic. Something simple as being able to trade with other players brought me back to a time before auction houses even existed. While many JRPGs involve a steep time commitment, this game, due to its multiple parts, is a bit different as a standalone product. When it was all said and done, it took me just shy over 13 hours, counting the optional dungeons, to clear out the game, but your mileage may vary depending on your playstyle. To wrap things up here regarding .hack Infection, I would like to end it on a positive note. The game at this point is just beginning. While there are already flaws showing from a progression standpoint and most importantly gameplay, this is the first installment. I'm not saying the game gets a pass on it purely because of that, but it more so gets a pass as there are 3 other installments to cover. 3 other installments that should improve the game in various ways.